Hey guys, Daniel here with a quick tutorial on how to use the graduated filter tool in the Lightroom Develop panel to edit specific areas of your photographs and really bring them to life. In our previous Develop tutorial, we covered how to use the basic sliders to make global edits to light and color in your photos. Now, we're going to dig a little deeper into the tools we find up here to get a little more precise with our modifications. When you look across the horizon during a time like sunset, like in the photo here, your human eyes are capable of adjusting in ways that let you perceive details in light and dark areas, giving you a view of the entire scene. Cameras, on the other hand, are not quite so capable of handling big differences between light and dark. We can see here in this photo that while the sun and the sky look pretty decent, we really can't see what's going on down here in the bottom half of the photo. Things get a little tricky if we want to bring out those details using only the basic panel. If we bring the exposure up to light the bottom up, the sky gets brought up as well and it gets completely blown out. So, how do we raise the exposure down here without ruining the sky? The answer lies in the graduated filter tool up here. We can place one in our photo by clicking on the graduated filter tool here. This opens up another editing panel that will apply specifically to the filter. We'll click and drag away from the area that we want to modify, and we'll place it that way. I'm not sure why that's the way we have to do it, but it is what it is. Drag away from the area that you want to modify. Now, I have the filter centered on the horizon, but in your own photos you can play around with it by clicking and dragging to see what works best for you. Now, we can turn up the exposure on the filter, and just like that, we've brightened up the bottom without affecting the sky. To see how this works, you can press O on your keyboard or check Show Selected Mask Overlay down here. The darker the red overlay is, the stronger the settings you have in the filter panel here are applied to the area. And you can see that we have a nice graduated fade up toward the horizon. Once that's done, get rid of the overlay here and hit Done. You can make some global edits if you have any finishing touches you'd like to add, so I'm just going to drop the exposure down a little bit. And I'd say we've done a good job of bringing out the details down at the bottom without losing the sky. And you can hit the backspace key to compare what you had before and what you had now. And I'd say it looks a lot better. So let's move on to another example. Now, this photo originally came out really underexposed and a little bit too warm. It looks kind of like a brown mush, and there's really nothing to look at here. So I raised the exposure and lowered the white balance temperature to correct for those problems. But as you can see, we're running into the same problem of the sky getting washed out when we light up the details in the foreground. This is another perfect scenario for the graduated filter, so I'll bring that out here. And I'll drag down from the sky to place the filter. That's about how I want it. And the width of the filter will determine how quickly the effect is applied. And you can see here, if I bring up the mask overlay, it's kind of a gradual fade in. If I bring it much closer, you can see the effect happens a lot more drastically. So I'll keep it open like that because I want kind of more of a subtle effect. And once I have the filter there, I will drop the exposure for the sky and bring that down. And that looks good right about there. Now, doing this makes the tops of the boulders up here a little dark for my liking, so I'll bring the shadows up to make up for that. I'll boost it there. You can see that kind of makes the boulders a little bit brighter. And the graduated filter also has a pretty nifty dehaze slider right here that selectively boosts the saturation of the blues in your photo, like in the sky up here. So we can use a touch of that just to really bring out the sky. Not too much, just a little bit. And we'll hit Done and take a look at what we have. And we've gone from a brown mush to something that really highlights the details in the whole photo, in the foreground and the background. Now, the last example we'll look at is really just a simple use case for the dehaze slider. We've got a shot of the LA skyline with that lovely mixture of smog and marine layer in the sky. And just by dropping a filter in on the horizon and turning up that dehaze slider, we can actually kind of cut through the white mesh that we had up here before. And we'll compare to take a look at that. And just that's literally one setting that was really easy. Now just be careful, because like with any other saturation slider, it's really easy to overdo it with the dehaze slider. So I'll open up the graduated filter tool again and click on the filter that we already have there. And you can just see that if we bring the dehaze slider up really high, you start to get some really nasty artifacting in your photo. So just be careful with the slider. We'll bring that back down. Anyway, that'll do it for this tutorial. I hope you guys find it helpful in editing your own photos, and stay tuned because I'll be covering some other really useful tools up in this panel here, like the spot removal tool and the adjustment brush in future tutorials.